Hello and welcome to round number 3 here at Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth playing Dominaria Limited. There is Tom Martell on the right side of your screen kicking things off at 2-0 versus Charles League, also starting the day at 2-0. And we are off to the races here in game number 1. Tom Martell, an island and a plains in play, passes the turn back over to Charles League, who's playing unsleeved Kenji. Relic Runner. I suppose it is Dominaria. That's very flavorful, you know, like going back to the origins of Magic.
It's just limited. Both these players very, very good. I think Tom has the larger pedigree, of course, but I mean, I've seen both these players do very well on the larger scene. So,
how about some Esper for Tom Martell
sure,
here?
love it. A lot of Esper cards that kind of just mesh very well together. We'll have to see what Tom is running in his list. Ooh, looks like Charles though. Charles on the more aggro red-blue plan.
I love it. Squee the Immortal joining the party. That Relic Runner is going to get in for 2 potentially here. Tom is considering the Seal Away, which he's going to use.
Sure. I mean, that's terrible versus Squee, right? You can cast Squee from Exile or Graveyard, so even if Tom had a Syncopate there, he doesn't want to use that on a Squee because it's just like, okay, well, you're going to recast this later anyways.
Ooh, Ariel is the play here for Tom Martell. This card is insane and definitely a reason to splash.
Yeah, certainly. Like a 4/4 Vigilance for 4, already pretty darn good. The fact that you can make night tokens with Ariel by tapping it, and also killing creatures with power less than the number of knights that you have is pretty strong. Like, Tom can already just tap Ariel and kill the Voltaic Servant here.
And Voltaic Servant, too, one of those cards that's kind of like you see it and you wonder what else is coming. Probably an Icy Manipulator, maybe
sure.
a Traxos.
It's a little bit more awkward with Icy unless you're going to get aggressive with it, right? Because
sure,
that means you're tapping the Icy on your turn to negate a blocker. And then, of course, it untaps at the end of your turn. But we'll see. I mean, this is free value here for Tom if he wants to.
Yeah, kind of considering if he wants to pull the trigger here or play out something from his hand.
Let me double-check Ariel real quick. But I'm pretty sure it's 3 to activate the Knight ability.
Yeah, 2 and a white, tap, and makes a knight. Here we've got Navigator's Compass going to gain Tom Martell 3 life back up to 23.
Ah, and so Tom's running the Compass.
Yeah.
That could signify that he maybe doesn't have much fixing for this splash. Maybe no Skittering Surveyors, stuff like that. He is Esper, so he doesn't have access to the green fixing either.
Fiery Intervention here, attempting to deal with this Ariel.
And it looks like he's probably just going to cash it in. 2/2 Knight here, more relevant in his eyes than taking care of the Voltaic Servant.
All right, well, the Servant and the Squee are coming in. Knight will block that Servant, but Squee gets in for 2.
And you have to remember, if Voltaic Servant's your only artifact on the battlefield and you're not going to use the ability for anything else, it's a free roll attack a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Often, you know, you've played it on turn 2, your opponent's played a 2/2, for example. You can just attack in for free, basically, because it's going to untap itself at the end of turn anyways. And a lot of times people are like, okay, well, it's just 1 damage. I don't want to run into a trick or something like that. You know, run amok, for instance.
Sure. It makes a difference, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Tom Martell might as well, speaking of free roll attacks.
Yep, exactly. This is the same exact thing.
All right, we're going to add an additional color of mana. Oh, no, in fact, we're actually going to just use this to pay a discounted Zahid Djinn of the Lamp. This card is a house, Kenji.
It is, yeah, definitely. Just, you know, even if you're not tapping an artifact for the alternate cost, 5/6 flyer for 6 is already a good rate in limited. Mahamodi Djinn, if you remember that card.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just perennial blue flying bomb. But if you can play this at a reduced cost, say on turn 4, oh, so hard to beat.
Speaking of good cards, here's Siege Gang Commander
what is going on?
From League. Bomb after bomb.
Well, do you know what's pretty good with Siege Gang Commander, Maria?
What's that? Squee?
The Immortal, potentially, perhaps.
Oh, yes. We have assembled the loop here.
It's very slow, yes. It's 5 mana to deal 2 damage to any target, but that's very good.
The Djinn is going to get in here for 5, and Blessed Light is going to get rid of that Siege Gang Commander.
Wisely so, yeah.
Very necessary. Oh, dang. That was cool, though.
Unlike Squee, Siege Gang cannot be returned now, as it is exiled permanently, but that's a great end game.
Yeah, that was sick.
Setup.
I do see a Skizix in hand for Charles League, as well as a Syncopate.
Oh, Skizix, one of my favorite cards from the original Invasion block. It's a reprint.
I think we might see it here. Why did you like it so much?
It's just right up my alley. You play it and you turn it sideways immediately.
Yeah.
Or maybe if you're on Magic Online, right-click attack all, LOL, GG. And I think we're going to see that exact
Here we go.
thing from Charles here.
In comes the team from Charles.
So Tom does have access to any color of mana right now, just one, though. So he could have like a fungal infection at very best in black itself. But this is pushing a lot of damage.
Yeah, he's going to get in for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But Tom Martell's down to 11.
Yeah, and he only lost one of the 1/1 soldiers, or rather goblins from the Siege Gang Commander. Like I see an Academy Journey Mage in Tom's hand, but all of those, like, sure, bouncing a token is fine, but that's not even, doing very much. Bouncing Skizzik is not great, Squee, whatever. It just buys him a little bit of time. Like, I liked the attack from Tom last turn with Zahid, just to push the damage. He didn't know Skizzik was going to be in Charles' hand, of course, but at this point he might step on the brakes. All depends on where he thinks he is in this situation.
All right, we'll tap 5. Cloud Reader Sphinx is the play here from Martell. Going to scry 2.
And we were already talking about this all day earlier. I mean, Sphinx is just great.
Oh, excellent.
Effectively, kind of drawing him 2 cards there, like 2 lands pushed to the bottom. It's 2 lands he's not going to draw.
Right. But, he looked at him, kind of looked at his hand.
Yeah, why not? Give it a glance. Maybe you have Jozu Vest in there somewhere, and you wanna kick it. You wanna hit 10 mana.
Charles League is a software designer. Went 6-0 at Pro Tour Cons in Hawaii. He's very proud of that. And limited, I assume.
In the draft portion, yeah.
Yeah. Tom Martell, Pro Tour Gate Crash winner. Pro Tour Paris back in 2011 got top 8 there. 9 Grand Prix top 8s, 3 wins. Notably won Grand Prix Atlanta, which was limited BFZ, with Green beating Turtenwald, who said famously that Green was unplayable.
So we're still on Tom's turn here, and yeah, he's just deciding if he wants to swing this race, if it's okay to do so.
Yeah, and he does choose to attack with the Jin. Charles League drops down to 10.
Sure, and this makes it a 2-turn clock,
Yeah, how do you not attack with that?
Right.
I don't know. It's very tempting.
Well, I think a lot of times players get in this mindset of, oh my gosh, they have, my opponent has so many creatures, and I'm already at half my life total or close to it in this scenario. And they play too cautiously. They're playing to survive and not to just win.
All right, that's Keldon Raider there from League, who will be able to do a little bit of rummaging and finds a run amok.
That's pretty darn good here.
Yes, indeed. And so he's going to swing in for the fences. Not with the Raider, though.
And the Cloud Reader Sphinx is tempted to block the Skizzik here. Tom probably wants to block the 1/1 as well. But just seeing that Charles rummaged first and decided to attack with everything, on the surface of things, you're asking yourself, okay, what can he have here? He could have a blink of an eye. He could have a fervent strike. He could have a run amok. And what are the best optimal blocks here if my opponent has that? And for Tom, he's in a really hard spot here, because even if he blocks a 1/1 with the Cloud Reader Sphinx, the run amok is just still so good.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to put the Knight in front of a Goblin token and the Cloud Reader Sphinx in front of Squee. That's 10. If he chooses to use the run amok.
Yeah, I mean, if these are the blocks for Tom, Charles is almost certainly just going to eat the Sphinx.
And there it is, run amok on Squee.
And again, there are only a few things Charles could potentially have there to make this an attack reasonable. Now, he could have also drawn like a burn spell, for instance, and Charles not minding if he throws away a creature, but in this case, run amok just being the best card there.
Pretty good attack there for Charles. Voltaic Servant untaps itself, Martell down to 3.
And you know what gained 3 life this game? And did nothing else? No,
yes, indeed.
It was fine. It tapped for Zahid.
Yeah, yeah, it did that.
All right.
When he already, he had enough lands.
Sure.
Kenji telling a cautionary tale about Navigator's Compass. But we said, sometimes it's a necessary evil. And sealed if you don't open the fixing you need.
Yeah. I still like the attack from Tom with the Zahid last turn. Now it ended up biting him, but we know he has that Academy Journey Mage, so he can bounce one of the creatures. And Zahid does stop the Skizik straight up. 2/2 can block any number of creatures just fine, although the Squee again, a little annoying.
Well, it is Squee after all.
Yes.
There's a look at Zahid, Djinn of the Lamp. Just one of the absolute cards that premier cards you're looking to open in your sealed pool, no doubt.
Yeah. He does as he pleases.
Little mortal.
Little mortal.
Yeah, if you're a Djinn, your take on, reality and is just completely different than us humans. I mean, you live in a lamp.
All right, let's see what Tom bounces here.
Down comes the Journey Mage.
So if he bounces, say, the Keldon Raider, does he still have a good block on his following turn? Obviously, you don't want to necessarily bounce a creature that can give Charles replays or re-triggers on the way back down, but sometimes you need to do that type of thing. Skizik's not so great. Again, it has the haste. Squee's not terrible to bounce, as the Journey Mage trades for the Raider. The Zahid blocks the Skizik. The Knight can block the 1/1, and yeah, you wouldn't be taking too much damage. We'll see what he opts, though. Could be Squee or the Raider. Or if he just wants to eat up Charles' mana, Skizik, but that doesn't seem as good to me. Token, I like it.
Token.
All right, so he's going to go for the straight-up value. Now, he does have enough blockers to survive here. The Servant and the Squee, right, do not push lethal on Tom by themselves. Together, yes, but not by themselves. So it's on Charles here to find something, because he just eats everything.
Yeah, Charles found a mountain, and I believe the last card in his hand besides that is a Syncopate.
Okay. And if Charles had nothing else to do, say he just drew another land for the turn and had 2 lands in his hand, he could attack with the Squee as kind of a free roll, since he could just recast it from his graveyard. But no reason to do that with a Syncopate in hand.
Just going to pass the turn back to Tom, who managed to stop that attack from Charles.
Yeah, bouncing the token gave him the longest or largest amount of value, right? Because the token isn't going to come back.
Back over to Charles again, draws another land, it looks like.
And he could have more Raiders in his deck, which is why he might be holding onto 1 land, but otherwise I like playing out the lands for Syncopate value.
Right.
Yeah, and so we're kind of in that, well, I'm not going to say grindy mode, but
it's a little bit of a stall.
In the late game stages, where both players are trying to find something. Let's see, 2, 4, 6. So Tom has 6 mana open.
That's a Blood Tallow Candle there from Martel.
So Syncopate, I don't think, can counter this, right? Because Tom can pay the 6 currently.
Right.
Yeah.
So it costs 6 to activate Blood Tallow Candle there. As you can see, tap it. It gives a target creature -5/-5 until end of turn.
And that's one of the better draws for Tom, I imagine. It's something that gets under the Syncopate but still has a very large effect here.
Yeah, that's actually kind of insane.
Yeah. So if Tom kills the Skizik, can he start attacking with Zahid? I think the answer is actually yes. He needs to put Charles on a clock, and well, we were talking about earlier. Remember that one attack that he made that put Charles down to 10? Now it's only 1 more turn.
All right, so Charles down to 5.
If he doesn't find something here, Tom's going to take the first game.
Wow. Able to stabilize. And Charles League just has to scoop him up. Tom Martel picks up that first game here in round 3 of Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yeah, well played by both players. Tom making that attack on one of the previous turns really helped him solidify that position. And again, the candle gets under the Syncopate, activates it immediately, deals with the Skizik, the only trampler from Charles' side, and he was able to take the win there.
How do you like Blood Tallow Candle, by the way?
I think it's actually pretty good.
Okay.
Right? A lot of the times you don't have a large amount of removal, and it comes down early if you want it to. It's a historic card for all those triggers if you want it. And -5/-5 deals with basically everything in the format, basically everything relevant. I think there are some very large creatures. We saw Zahid there, which is a 5/6. There's like Verdant Force, 7/7. Some kicked creatures can get larger as well, but For the most part, I think you're okay running the first of these and maybe even more.
And, it's an onboard trick as well. It just sits there.
Right, yep.
So it kind of turns a lot of things off, essentially.
Yeah, it can make the opponent not play out their best creature that they wanted to on curve if they know you can just blow up the candle. Oftentimes, you might even sandbag the candle in your hand, and wait until turn 5 to play it. Because if you play it on turn 5 and then you hit your 6th land, you'll be able to activate it on turn 6.
Look at our players here as they head to their sideboards or shuffle up here for game number 2. Charles League winning the hat game currently. Although I shouldn't say in the entire venue because I'm sure there's some cowboy hats here being in Texas. Whenever we head to Texas for any Grand Prix, I always look around the room. There's plenty of cowboy hats, cowboy boots.
Wouldn't let me wear mine in the booth, but
really? Oh,
got it in the
Kenji.
back. I got it in the back.
You know what? If you were wearing like a black cowboy hat with this suit, I would buy it. It's like some kind of like Westworld thing going on. So this is pretty exciting for me to be here at this tournament playing Dominaria Limited on a big scale, our first covered tournament with video coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen anything so far that surprised you, or has this kind of turned out how you expected the format to show up this weekend?
No, I think pretty much we've seen everything as expected. For the most part, the games have drawn out. There haven't been like extremely aggressive decks, although I'm sure we will find some of those later on. People grinding out and just eventually getting there off the back of either a larger bomb or something that can go wide.
Do you like this format so far?
Oh yeah, been thoroughly enjoying it. I expect most of the people playing this weekend are also having a good time.
It seems that the pros have been really jamming on Dominaria too. A lot of them really enjoying it. I mean, you've got the nostalgia factor that you talked about.
Sure.
And also, I just think it's a pretty solid limited environment, which is honestly kind of surprising to me because when I looked at the spoiler, it was seemed fairly simple, fairly straightforward. There was nothing that was too complicated necessarily. We did have the sagas, which was really cool. But it's played out for me not simple at all.
I mean, you get legendaries every pack. You have that nostalgic factor. You do have the sagas, which are new and nice. But for the pros especially, or anybody going to be playing at the Pro Tour in Richmond later next month, this is the draft set. So it's good to just get those reps in. Good to practice with the cards.
Which Pro Tour are you going to, Kenji?
That would be the one I'm going to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Of course.
Oh.
I mean, it's not in one of the exotic Pro Tour locations, but I'm not going to complain.
What? Come on, Richmond? It's exotic as it comes.
Maybe for you. Maybe for you, not me.
No, we're all super excited to see you there, Kenji. We've all been cheering for you for a long time. So happy to have you finally make the PT. I'm sure we'll get you on camera when you no doubt are clinching Draft Master.
We'll see about that. Draft Master is the entire...
Yeah, but you're going to do it in one go.
I'm just going to go 12-0, 15-0.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play my draft deck the whole time. It would be legal.
It would?
It would be legal, yeah.
Wait, would it though? Because you would have to have 60 cards.
Okay, I would
DQ.
combine. I would combine the two. Okay, man, you have to submit your deck list beforehand, but...
Charles League playing unsleeved. I love it. Old school action in more ways than one here. Tom Martell on the mulligan is going to scry to the bottom. And League's going to kick things off with an island here in Game 2. Tom Martell currently up a game. Able to stall Charles League's more aggressive deck out and win with the help of the Gin of the Lamp. Last game.
Tom's got to be thrilled that there was no 2-drop there from Charles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we saw a seal away used on the 2-drop Relic Runner last game.
Short sword here from Martell.
Is this the duck?
It is the duck. Duck, Valduck, Keeper of the Flame for Charles League, one of my absolute favorite cards in the entire set.
Looks like Tom has a reproach in hand, though.
Yes, I think so. I smell a reproach.
Funny enough, Tom is the one that has the equipment on the battlefield,
I
whereas
know,
Charles has
very
nothing.
sad. All right, Gideon's reproach going to take down Valduck.
Doing his best impression of a Goblin Rough Rider there.
And oh
my God.
wow! Ooh. Down comes Gin of the Lamp, discounted cost thanks to that short sword. What a draw from Tom Martell.
Yeah, I was talking about -5, -5. Well, there are also 5 damage effects in the format. Charles has the Fiery Intervention in his hand, and you know what?
Yes, he does.
A 5/6 is just so huge here.
What do you do about this card?
In blue-red, Charles has access to something like a bounce spell and then countering it on the way back down.
That
See if he has like a
seems
blink of an eye, since we know he has a Syncopate in his deck.
Right.
He could have a Deep Freeze, which would take care of Zahid, making it an 0/4 defender. If he gets to 9 mana and has, say, Fight with Fire, that would deal 6 damage to Zahid and 4 split among other targets. He might have to fire 2 burn spells. Sheevan Fire plus that intervention could also work. But yeah, Tom is firmly in the driver's seat right now.
All of those things that you mentioned seem highly difficult.
Yeah, they're not the easiest thing. I mean, he has the intervention in hand, so if he has a Sheevan Fire in his deck, a land
What about a
in the fire.
6/7? Make it even tougher.
No, the fire plus intervention line would still work.
Still
but
works.
Again, that's only if he had that. I think Bounce and Deep Freeze are the best scenarios here for Charles, should he have them. Is that a Frenzied Rage?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so he did have an equipment there for the duck.
Oh, there you
and
go,
the Deep
Freeze.
Freeze. Okay, so if Tom doesn't have a counter here, or say Invoke to remove that enchantment, then yeah, Charles has pulled back ahead.
Wow. Frenzied Rage giving +2/+1 and Menace to that Cloud Reader Sphinx. And Deep Freeze turning that Djinn of the Lamp into an 0/4 wall with Defender.
A 1/5. It's still holding that short sword,
still,
you know.
it still has a sword.
Flavor-wise, I'm thinking that Zahid is his arm is, you know, out of
Out
the
of
ice
the
still,
ice,
and kind of
yeah.
just swinging it at Saprolings if they would come into the red zone. Great turn there for Charles, though.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Yeah, and it's going to be very hard for. Oh my!
Urza's Ruinous Blast.
That's pretty darn good.
Exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary.
Yeah, and we saw there Tom was reading the card Deep Freeze. It doesn't get rid of the legendary type from Zahid or any other creature that it's placed on, so he's still able to cast that here, and wow.
That
brutal.
was nuts. Cloud Reader Sphinx here, once again, number 2 for Charles League, is finding a Siege Gang Commander along with something else on the scry.
Yeah. Now remember, the Blast does exile, so those cards in Charles' graveyard right now should be exiled. There we go. Looks like he's... Oh, well. They should be exiled, but it's not hugely relevant right now. As you can see, Tom has his short sword exiled.
Ah, yes. There's some things in the set that exile that you wouldn't necessarily expect, Syncopate being one of them.
And there are enough graveyard effects or graveyard synergy effects in this format that, you know, it does become relevant.
All right, Zahid gets in, followed up by Coldwater Snapper. Old Snappy.
Old Snappy.
League down to 4.
And Snapper's just so hard to deal with. Like,
yes, it's just...
The best thing to deal with Snapper, besides like double blocking, is an Eldest Reborn, but that's, you know, under the scenario that your opponent only has that creature, the Snapper itself.
Keldon Raider here, 4 leagues, going to discard and draw. Down goes Squee. That's a pretty good discard.
Yeah, but, I mean, this means that he's going to have to be chumping with his 3/4 flyer Sphinx next turn.
Ugh.
All right.
Yep, there we go.
Cut the Exile, Deep Freeze, Sphinx, and the Frenzied.
Yes.
Tom Schultz
On Sarah's wings goes on the turtle.
is a legendary turtle, for what it's worth.
Tom Martell taking down that match versus Charles League, 2-0.
Yeah, we saw the power of flyers. We saw the power of some timely removal on both sides.
Yeah, Charles League's deck good as well, but I mean, what can you do? There's a giant flying lifelinking turtle.
5/6 legendary flying vigilance lifelink
Gross.
turtle. Hexproof on that.
Wow.
That's pretty nice.
So I want to know how many times you've put something like Arcane Flight on that turtle.
Arcane Flight, not so much. Like the flight, you generally don't want to run it just for the turtle. If it's good in your deck, sure.
I've been doing some things very wrong.
If you're an aggro deck, sure. I like the flight, especially with the Valduck, but you know, Tom didn't have that. He's playing Esper colors, of course.
Sure.
If you have something on Sarah's Wings, sure, that gets a little bit better. And On Sarah's Wing is already a card that you're going to play in your deck because it's good already, right? You don't want to play bad cards to make other cards good, or better in this case because the turtle's already good. You want to play, cards that are already good on their own, like the Sarah's Wings. So
I've been reprimanded by Kenji live on Twitch. You're right, though. You're right. And we saw the power in that game of some of the busted legendary creatures that are in Dominaria, including Zahid, Djinn of the Lamp. But something that people have been saying that they really like about this set is that, yes, you have cards like, the Djinn of the Lamp and any other number of legendaries, but they can be dealt with usually by commons in the set, for Eviscerate, for example.
Yeah, or Deep Freeze, as we saw in the case for Charles there. Unfortunately, again, he got blasted by Urza, but that's the way it goes. I mean, the game 2 was not as exciting as game 1 by any means. Game 1 was a nice race, and I think that's how most games of the format, you expect them to pan out. Tom, though, with, I think it was turn 4 Zahid, right?
Yes, it's turn 4
off of the short sword. And turn 4, 5, 6 flyer, if you don't have an immediate answer, then it's just going to be very hard to deal with. We saw him chump with, Charles, that is, chump with the Cloud Reader Sphinx at the end of the game there. Or actually, no, he just died to the Sarah's Wings. Never mind. Well, he would have had to.
He would have had to, yeah.
So.
Yeah, and Urza's Ruinous Blast doing some work in that game as well. First time that I've actually seen that card cast.
Yeah, these legendary sorceries are a little bit harder to cast because remember you have to have a planeswalker or a legendary creature. So if you don't have at least say 4+ in your deck, it's generally not going to be worth it.
All right, well, we've got an interview down in our feature match area joined by Tom Martell. Hi, Tom. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How you doing?
Great. Maria and Kenji here in the booth. That was pretty sweet there. Turn 4, Djinn of the Lamp, huh?
Yeah, that's one of the more fair things you can do in this format. Right. I feel a little bad. It's pretty busted.
No, that game wasn't as interactive as game 1. We were talking about how in game 1 you made an attack with the Zahid to get Charles down to 10, which was really, really great. You were playing to win as opposed to not playing to just survive, and then the Academy Journey Mage letting you get that 2-turn clock in the air was really good.
Yeah, game 1 had a couple interesting decisions. I think that attack, my instinct was not to attack, but I'm trying to play more aggressively. I just trust myself more. So I kind of decided the attack made sense there. And then the Journey Mage, I almost bounced the 4/3 to take pressure off of the next turn, but I realized that I'm just going to lose the value from that card. Right. So I thought those were interesting sequences, and it was a really close game.
I want to ask about the mana base in your deck. You're running that Navigator's Compass that not a lot of people like, but sometimes you just have to do it, right?
I do not like it either. I think, in fact, I boarded it out, but I think with Zahid and I also have a Traxos, it makes it much easier to play kind of some of the worst artifacts. You get that value on those two cards. So I felt okay about it, but I actually boarded out for the Urza's Ruinous Blast, which we saw do some work there in game 2.
Yeah, that was awesome. So how many legendary creatures do you have in your deck for the Blast?
I have 5, which I think is enough. It's right on the cusp. And so I thought about main decking it, and I decided to play the Compass instead just for the extra artifact. And then but the Blast also untaps Traxos, which is a pretty sick interaction too.
Oh, yeah.
So I decided I sideboarded into that.
Do you mind telling us what other legendary creatures? You said Traxos, we saw the Zahid, we saw Ariel.
You saw Ariel, yes. Yeah, so 2 of the best in the format there. 3 of the best really in the format. And then I also have a Raph, and then you actually saw the wings as well, which makes which triggers too.
Absolutely.
So that's my full suite there. I don't have any of the white uncommons, and there's quite a few legendary uncommons in white, and unfortunately I would love to have any of them just for the triggers. But I think 5's enough to make it work.
Well, your deck's pretty sweet. Good luck to you the rest of the rounds today, Tom.
Thanks.
Yeah, some good pools we're seeing on camera here this weekend, Kenji, already.
When you can get a lot of legendaries at uncommon, it just makes things a little more problematic for people that don't have much removal. Although, granted, all of those were rares from Tom, I believe, right?
Yes.
Traxos, Ariel, and the, what was the last? Zahid, all rare. Raph was the only one that was an uncommon there. So.
Oh, must be nice. All right, we'll be back with more Magic action after these messages. and welcome back to the booth here at GP Dallas Fort Worth. Maria Bartholdi in the booth, joined by Numat the Nummy, Kenji Igashira, and we've got some time walk magic coming up for you here. Frank Scarron versus Ian Burrell. And Frank Scarron, of course, a player that many people are familiar with, 3 Grand Prix top 8s. Ian Burrell from Minnesota has played on a couple of pro tours, so we've got some stuff to look forward to there, some good magic. Kenji's got the deck list in hand, so we're going to take a look at what happens here in game number 1.
And they're off to the races. Both players are landing well here, and a death on turn 2 from Ian Burrell.
Very, very speedy, and that was a good call.
Sorry,
there,
I was trying
Kenji.
to do my best Rich impression.
2 Llanowar elves out, as you mentioned, and Danitha is going to join the party there for Ian as well.
Turn 2 Danitha is kind of heartbreaking.
Pretty good.
Frank does have the 3 mana of his own, though, so might see something. Oh, no. Frank missed a land drop, though. But I think
sad.
keeping a 1-lander on the draw with an elf is a perfectly acceptable play. Unfortunately, Untamed Kavu does not block a 2/2 first striking vigilance creature. Oh, yeah, and lifelink.
Wow, she's so good.
Very good.
I want to cosplay as her sword.
As her sword? What?
Yeah, because it's a really sweet stained glass sword. And I don't have that shaved head or anything, so I can't be that cool, but I can be a sword.
Fair enough.
Speaking of good creatures with 2 power, Knight of Grace for Ian Burrell here. Protection from black, first strike, 2/1, gets +1/+0 as long as any player has a black card in play.
Uh-oh, and a swamp
Ooh,
from Frank
there we
means
go.
there might be a black permanent hitting the battlefield here soon. No, wait, not protection, hexproof from
Oh,
black.
excuse me, hexproof, yes. Yes. All right, we've got the Yavimaya Sap Herd here, coming along with a little Saproling. I learned yesterday that the Thalids created the Saprolings and farmed them much like we farm food, like cows or livestock. So that's why the Thalid omnivore eating the Saprolings isn't carnivorous.
Cannibalistic?
Cannibalistic, yeah.
Interesting. Also gains you life with the Omnivore, too. Omnivore is a great card while
so
we're on
good.
that
So good.
topic.
All right, we're going to see a swing in here from Ian Burrell.
It's just so hard to block here if you're Frank. You're playing against green-white, who has access to any number of combat tricks. Now, if he's in a position where he can't win anyways, you know, if Ian has a combat trick, then you're going to just have to make that double block and hope that nothing happens here.
Blessed Light here from Ian Burrell.
Okay, so that's actually not terrible for Frank. He would, he'd be much less happy if it was something, say, like Adamant Will, just one of the combat tricks. But using a Blessed Light there on a 2/2 just to kill an additional 2/2, not the greatest of value. And it looks like Ian might just be trying to close out the game pretty quickly here while Frank's stumbling on mana.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that play is just something fine that you have to do sometimes? You're like, well, you know what, I'm going to, stumbling on mana, I'm just going to try and push this through.
Sure, if your game plan is to end the game quickly, then yes, I think that's okay. Normally, I'd be just as happy, trading the 2/2 off for one of the other 2/2s, because you still have a 2/2 first striker on the battlefield.
Right.
And you can still applying pressure, because the Blessed Light's going to be good later on as well.
Vicious Offering here is going to take down Danitha. Pretty good deal for Frank, who's able to chip in one with that Llanowar Elves as well. Ian Burrell answers back. Knight of Grace gets in for 2.
Yeah, and we saw that aggressive Blessed Light, but, I mean, Ian's not really doing too much. He has a 2/2 first striker, a 2/3, and 3/1/1s right now. Frank, if he just plays a 3/3, if he hits a land and plays that Omnivore that we were talking about, I'm not sure if it's in his hand or in his deck, but if he just has a 3/3, that completely bricks Ian's creatures.
Yeah, Sergeant at Arms here coming along with 2 soldiers, but as you said, I mean, green's the color that goes big, and Frank probably has some big stuff in his hand, given that he's not been able to play out very much so far in the game. Nature's Spiral here. Wow, I haven't seen this card cast yet. Either is going to get back that Untamed Kavu. Ooh, Black Blade Reforged for Frank.
Very good card. I'm probably going to end up running that card in all of my seal decks. The only thing is, it's not going to do anything this game unless he can find, a legendary creature, as the equip cost standalone is 7. Yes.
Yeah, this card gives a boost based on the number of lands you control, but it's very, very expensive to equip. 7 for any normal creature, 3 if you have a legendary creature.
Yeah, we're probably just going to see Ian bash with everything here. Frank defenses down with just a Saproling to block.
Smash. We're going to trade with the Llanowar Elves. Gets in for 6.
Yeah, dropping Frank to 8. Ian does have that Memorial to Glory on the battlefield too, so that's an extra 2 1/1s should he opt to use that at the end of the turn. And it was a sap herd that Frank got back with the
Oh, it was a Sapper.
the
You're
nature
right.
spire,
Yes.
right?
Excuse me. The Kavu there is exiled.
I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
2 creatures when you're kind of stuck on mana. Ian, though, continuing to go wide. There's that Memorial. So Ian's going to have 6 total creatures. Yeah, the sap herd only good versus the 1/1s, but Ian has so many that, I think he's probably just going to swing out again.
And here you mentioned earlier how annoying a 2/3 can be.
Yep.
And we're seeing it, the power of that right now.
Yeah, usually it's better annoying as a defensive creature, but here, Frank not being able to single block it is kind of problematic when he's at 8.
So yeah, Ian sends the whole team into the red zone. Still 5 mana at the ready.
So if you're in Frank's position, you probably need to preserve the 2/2, but you're going to end up making some unfortunate trades and blocks and taking a decent amount of damage still.
Do you say you need to preserve the 2/2 just because it's so important against those 1/1 soldiers that Ian has for later turns?
Yeah, well, and if you're blocking with the sap herd on one of the 2/2s or 2/3s, then you're making a multi-block.
And that's just scary. Okay, so Sapperling on Sapperling, Sap Herd on a soldier. Knight of New Benalia here for Ian, 3/1 vanilla.
I mean, it's lethal by itself.
That's true, Frank. Scaring down to 2.
Yeah, 3 lethal creatures and the 2 1/1s. Not much Frank's going to be able to do here.
All right, there is land number 4 and a pass from Frank.
And he might just be seeing if he gets some more information from Ian. Maybe Ian casts something pre-combat here.
No fear from Ian Burrell. Turns him sideways, and Frank scoops him up. Was a bit crimped on land there in game number 1 here in round 3. This is Time Walk Magic, so we can speed right ahead to game number 2. Adventurous Impulse, the first play of the game for Scarin.
Yeah, not as good as his last game where he had that turn 1 Llanowar Elf, but this will help find that second land.
Or Llanowar Elf.
Sure, or Llanowar Elf.
It's just a 1/1, but the mana creation ability is so important, especially in a format like Sealed.
As the saying goes, you always bolt the bird.
Yes.
Back in the day, you can lightning bolt your opponent's turn 1 birds of paradise.
So
Similar thing here. Fire the elf, I guess.
Yeah, fire the elf, lightning the elf.
It's
Forest
just because
from Burrell.
it can just put you so much over the top of your opponent. If you're playing 3 drops and 4 drops when they're casting 2 drops and 3 drops, or you're able to cast multiple spells in a turn, it's just disgusting.
Speaking of the elves, there they are. 2 on the card, finally, in the art.
A red land from Frank this game.
Really?
So he might have went to his sideboard and decided, and this is what we were talking about in a few earlier rounds, that, if you have a sideboard, maybe your decks are comparable, but you feel better positioned, versus specific decks, maybe you make a change. We'll see if Frank started with this card in his main deck. No, so he was just straight up green-black, as we saw in the previous game. Yeah, and he's moved over to red-green. In red, he has some powerful cards. So he has that Halar there, we see.
Sure.
Sheevan Fire, Varix Bladewing.
Wow.
Yeah, Fire Fist Adept is another nice one.
Halar swinging in here for 3. Gets a +1/+1 counter if you kick a spell.
Yeah.
Rampaging Cyclops.
Also deals damage to the opponent based on the number of +1/+1 counters when you kick a spell.
Yeah, great card. I think I spy a blue card in hand for Ian as well.
Let's take a look at Ian's deck. He is not running any blue cards in the main, so maybe both players went to their boards.
Yes, take a look at this.
Oh, why? Time of Ice, yes.
It's about to get chilly in here.
Yeah, and we saw Ian's first game where he was pretty aggressive, going wide, just like one of the Hart brothers was doing earlier in green-white. But Time of Ice is just a huge tempo beating. Like, as long as it remains on the battlefield, you're going to get to tap down 2 creatures, and then on the 3rd trigger, you return all creatures that are tapped to their owner's hands, even yours. So if you have something like an Icy Manipulator, you can potentially bounce up to 3 creatures. You can tap your own creature, for instance, if it hasn't entered the battlefield ability, and bounce it back to your hand for some extra value, stuff like that.
Another sap herd here for Frank. That Cyclops tapped down by Time of Ice. Halar was able to get in. Llanowar Elves a play.
So we're probably just going to see the Halar get tapped down by Time of Ice. Maybe even the Sapperling token if Ian wants to go for a little bit more value route. Remember, these trigger on your main phase. They do say on them at
beginning of your draws?
No, they say after your draw
after
step.
Your draw
yeah,
step?
It says after your draw step, but it does mean in your main phase.
Yeah, that was done because a lot of stuff triggers usually on your upkeep or something like that.
Right.
It was done to give you some more information after you've drawn, design-wise.
So it looks like he did tap the Sapperling there, I think, right? He's grouped the Sapperling and the Cyclops together.
All right, Sap Herd hitting the red zone here for Ian. Sap Herd on Sap Herd Violence. They're both going to go down. Knight of New Benalia, 3-1 from Ian. Call the Cavalry will add 2/2 Vigilant Knights.
So this makes a little bit more sense now that he would tap down the Sapperling as well. Not only does it permanently get rid of that creature, but he's playing a 3/1 out. He doesn't want to just trade that for a Sapperling, which was created for free from the Sapperd. This is a little bit awkward for Frank. He doesn't want to attack with, say, Halar, as, well, one, it trades with the Knight of New Benalia, but also if he taps any of the creatures on his turn, they're going to be bounced by Ian's Time of Ice.
Pardic Wanderer here the play for Frank. 5/5 Trampler.
And it's fine filler card. It's also historic, so if you have any synergies, it can add to that.
All right, Time of Ice hits Chapter 3. The Sapperling token bounced out of existence, and the Cyclops back into Frank's hand.
I think I see a Gift of Growth in Ian's hand as well. That's going to be a pretty good one. Let him keep attacking a little bit wider. The problem being with Frank having 2 larger creatures, he would automatically lose one if Frank were just to, say, double block the 2/2 Vigilance creatures. We'll see if Ian wants to attack in and make that trade. Yeah, I'd put this position in Frank's favor right now, just because he has the 2 larger threats, but could swing either way. We know the Cyclops in Frank's hand as well, which also bricks everything from Ian's position.
All right, Danitha is going to hit the table there for Ian. Pass the turn back over to Frank. I have a question about that Time and Ice addition from Ian. Why do you think he brought it in?
Maybe he knows, since Frank was also playing green but not white, that he was going to go a little bit bigger than Ian was going wide, and so he just wanted that extra way to deal with some early threats by tapping them down. Now, it didn't prove to be too useful here, as Frank was already able to develop out a few other larger threats that already bricked Ian's side of the board. But, I mean, it's fine. Like, it's a little bit awkward on the splash just because a lot of the times you want to cast it earlier to push through early damage, but if you cast it later, its effect is less pronounced unless the opponent has, only 1 or 2 creatures on the battlefield.
All right, Pardic Wanderer and Halar both getting in there. And we do know that Ian has a Gift of Growth in hand, as you mentioned, Kenji. 6 man up from Frank, though, too.
Right. This is pretty telling that Frank might also have a combat trick, because 3/3 attacking into, well, 2 2/2s at the very least is got to smell a little bit fishy.
Ian here going to take the bait.
All right, and this is just like
a little bit
the obvious block, right? Now remember, Ian does have that trick of his own, so he could potentially get Frank here and just kind of make this a 2 for 1.5, right? Trading one of his knights plus the Gift of Growth for Halar plus whatever trick we might see here from Frank. The problem being if that Frank has a gift of growth of his own, he can kick it, right?
Right.
And that would make Halar an 8/8 trampler for the turn. This does look like 4 mana. Could this be? Ooh. Oh, Sheevan Fire. Similar effect. Okay, so what we're seeing here...
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, Frank's targeting the Sheevan Fire at Danitha, which is going to make Halar trade with these 2 tokens on the surface.
Lara will get a +1/+1 counter because of the kicked Sheevan Fire. Will also deal some damage to Ian.
Yeah, heads up play from Frank here. Kicking the Sheevan Fire means he doesn't get to play the Cyclops in second main phase, but this does play around a lot of the tricks that Ian could have. The worst case scenario, Ian would have Adamant Will. Make one of his creatures indestructible for the turn, but... I mean, that was just a 2 for 2, right?
Right. Clearing up the board a bit. Danitha's down. 2/2/2 Knights gone for Ian. And Halar down for Frank. Ian's down to 8.
Okay, that secondary combat trick was not too shabby. Not sure why Ian took that much damage there. He was at, what was he at before?
I can't remember. He took 1 from Halar?
He should have taken 1 from Halar for the 1 counter. Was he at 9? I guess this is time walk match anyways, but... Ooh, Wild Onslaught. All right, another tricky. That's one of the better cards for the decks that go wide.
I didn't even remember that was an instant.
Yeah. If you kick it, your creatures get +2/+2, but here, I mean, he doesn't have the necessary mana, but giving all of his creatures +1/+1 is not too bad. This does put Tim in scary range as he has no blockers now for that 5/5 Trampler, putting him to 3 life.
Smash.
Yeah, a lot of things could have killed Ian there, but... Ooh, and that's
there's the Kavu.
another pretty good one here.
2 5/5s on the table for Scarin.
Yeah, Ian's going to have to play a little defense now.
Down to 3. 5 mana available. Make that 6.
7 with the elf.
Oh, yes, indeed. Is he just attacking here?
Interesting. So he has 2, 6, 7, 8 damage. Well, if Frank doesn't block, he has lethal.
Yes, he does.
And the thing is...
How do you not block?
I'm pretty sure he has 2, right? Gift of Growth in his hand. So if Frank blocks a creature here and Ian kicks the growth, he gets to eat and preserve whatever creature he casts it on and can still use the secondary growth. Oh, right. He can just cast it out as long as the big creature doesn't get blocked, right? So Frank would need Sheevan Fire wouldn't even work. It wouldn't even work because he just lets the first one resolve.
Well, Ian Burrell takes down that match, 2 games to 0.
Yeah, crazy.
Over Frank Scarin. That was pretty cool. Double gift of growth play there at the end of the game. We've got more Magic coming up for you, actually. Sam Eilenfeld versus Ryan Sutherland as well. Another time walk match, which was on our table C. Sam Eilenfeld, you might remember from the last Pro Tour, coming in 4th. Pretty good stuff there. We're going to start in Game 2 down in our time walk. Feature match area. Sam on the right side of your screen, Ryan on the left. And we are speeding things along and slow down. There's the Knight of Grace for Ryan Sutherland, who is currently up a game here. Relic Runner for Sam.
All right, looks like both players have some decent starts here. Ryan, though, with, of course, slightly better 2-drop, although Relic Runner can do some amazing work. Blue-White has a decent number of historic cards in it, and, 2 damage just gets there sometimes.
And sometimes you just got to play your Skin Witch on turn 2 as a 1/3 to block a Relic Runner.
Right, this does multiple things, actually, because the Knight of Grace doesn't care about who owns the black permanent, so Ryan's actually pumping up his own Knight here, and Lets him get in for 3 damage.
Ryan from Orange County, California is a game designer, finished 4th in the original Great Designer Search. They hired everyone else, though.
Is that right?
He says. Oh, daggers.
Looks like Sam has a lot of options. I think I see an Aether Glider. I think Davenant.
Oh, the Trapper.
Some Blessed Light as the top end.
But some good stuff in Sutherland's hand as well. We've got a Gideon's Reproach. We've got a Settle the Score.
Oh, yeah. Nice removal spells here. Ryan, though, stuck on 2 lands.
Yeah. A Blackblade Reforged as well, hiding in Ryan's hand.
Okay.
There's the glider there from Sam. In comes the Relic Runner, who is unblockable thanks to playing that historic card. How do you like that little glider?
It's okay. It seems like in Sam's deck it's going to do some work because he has the historic enablers like the Relic Runner, or rather historic cards that care about historic enablers like the glider itself.
Sure.
I mean, you could have something like Raph as well. Flashing in a 2-1 end of turn's not awful. Stuff like that.
Oh, Raph.
Sam's just going to be forced, or not Sam, rather. Ryan's going to be forced to kind of just keep trading damage for damage here. There are going to be some turns where he leaves the Caligos Skinwitch back to, you know, force Sam to have another historic card to get in with the Relic Runner, but oh, he did hit his 3rd land. Okay, that's good.
All right, so the Knight of Grace is going to get in for 3, dropping Sam down to 14.
3-2 first striker is so hard to block in the early game.
Oh, yeah. Those Knights are just excellent. Benalish Honor Guard here, the follow-up for Sutherland. Just a 2-2. Gets +1/+0 for their legendary creatures you control.
But that's so important for him. Like, because he was stumbling on mana a bit, still having plays in the early game is important when your opponent, in this case Sam, also has a decent curve out.
Oh, it's a 2/3 Golem from Sam Eilenfeld here, allowing that Relic Runner once again to get in unblocked as well as the Glider. But that card is kind of a liability sometimes. When it attacks, both players draw a card?
Mm-hmm. Attacks or blocks.
Or blocks,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, again, the 2/3 body, we've been talking about it, just like the Tellurian Scholar in the earlier matches. It's perfectly fine in this matchup, and in fact, you know, it stops the 2/2 from Ryan, and if he didn't have the black permanent, it would stop the Knight of Grace as well. Uh-oh.
Is this Mishra's Self-Replicator
Yes,
here
it is.
from
And
Sam?
now we see why Sam might be running so many artifacts.
Spicy. I like it, Sam.
So I think a lot of people don't realize for the Self-Replicator, it doesn't just go off one at a time. It replicates itself. So after the first time, if you cast a Short Sword, it'll trigger twice because it'll trigger for each of the replicators.
Oh, really?
Right. So if
if
you have 3 replicators and you cast a Short Sword and you have 3 extra mana, you get to create 3 more after that.
Oh. Come on, Sam. Play something.
I think I saw Bolus Clutches in his hand, too.
Oh, I think I saw Mox Amber.
In his hand?
Am I crazy? That might he's shuffling so fast, but
well, this is Time Walk, right? So
oh yes, well, this is not him really shuffling that fast, but with the aid of computers and science.
we saved that for Brian Kibler.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but you can see that Ryan's kept the race going. The 3/2 first strike has Sam at 8. You know, Sam doesn't actually have very many good blockers right now.
All right, I think we're going to see the Dominant Trapper here from Sam first. And there indeed is the Mox Amber. We're going to pay, and we're going to replicate Mishra's Self-Replicator.
I didn't have high confidence that we were going to see a Mox Amber.
Really?
No.
Well, Sam's deck definitely has a plan.
I suppose so. I mean, have we seen a legendary permanent from him yet?
No. Taps down the Skin Witch there with that Trapper off of the trigger from the Mox Amber.
There's that replicator token.
Yeah. I was wondering what we would use for that. Well, we'll just use the back of a magic card. All right, so.
Both players get to draw. Ooh, was that a Tetsuko?
Ooh, nice. That would make that Glider unblockable, even though Sutherland doesn't have any creatures yet to block it.
Oh, no, it's just another Relic Runner.
All right. Relic Runner number 2.
Yeah, unfortunately for Sam, he wouldn't have been able to use the Replicator even if that was a Tetsuko.
Oh, I think I might see Ansar's Wings in hand for Ryan Sutherland.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, that's a...
But I believe Sam is holding a Blessed Light.
Okay.
So that
I
might
mean,
save him if that is in fact what Ryan's plan is.
even getting in for one hit with an Ansar's Wings creature would be a lot of life gain swing. That would be an 8-point life swing.
Yeah, Knight of Grace is going to wear those wings right now.
So,
Gets in.
funny enough, now the 2/2 is a 3/2 because the Knight's a legendary creature.
Oh, yeah.
Not that it has huge relevance here. In fact, if Sam drew the right combination of cards, there is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, there was a small chance that he had lethal this turn, but he would have to have multiple historics to tap down.
There's the Blessed Light. It's going to take down the Knight of Grace and the wings as well. Just a land left in hand for Islandfelt.
Yeah, probably just getting in with the fly. Maybe he gets in with the 2/3 if he feels like he wants to get some more cards. But his position is better right now than Ryan's is, and so I don't necessarily think you need to give the opponent more cards, especially if you don't have any free mana to cast anything if you draw a relevant spell.
Sure. Yeah, it looks like Sam agrees with you. Just gets in with the Glider for 2, Sutherland down to 10, but Islandfelt's life total kind of precarious at 4, but not a lot on the battlefield for Ryan, but plenty in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Sanctum Spirit settled the score. Want to say that's a Juggernaut as well.
Yeah, I think so.
A lot of action and that Black Blade.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, handful of gas there for Sutherland. There is a Sanctum Spirit, which can be made indestructible if you discard a historic spell.
Yeah, the Black Blade's not going to be doing too much, so
Yeah, might as well.
if any card is going to be discarded, we'll probably see the Black Blade.
Looks like Sam wants to draw another card here.
And I think we'll see Ryan block with the Spirit.
Yeah.
Or maybe he just wants to block with the Skin Witch and play it a little bit safer, but again, the Black Blade not doing too much. Sam's already at 4 life, so most creatures are going to be pretty lethal on their own as is. He's discarding the Juggernaut, though.